What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to be doing a little bit of maintenance on the Duramax. So I'm going to show you step by step how to replace your inner and outer bearings and races and your axle seal. So first things first, we're going to take our caliper off and set it up here on top of the leaf spring where it's out of the way, it's not hanging on any lines. And to do that, there's two bolts on the back side. You can use an 18mm wrench to get the top one. You can use a socket on the bottom one and they'll come right out. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to actually pull this entire axle out. So you take these 8 bolts off, they're 18mm, or you can use a 3/4, we'll get it done. And the impact definitely helps. So before I take that last bolt out, I'm going to take a catch pan. Once we take this axle out, it should start leaking some fluid out of there. There it is. So next, there's a retaining clip. That's right on the inside here. So we're gonna pop that out. If I can do it with one hand. Just like that. There's our retaining clip. There's a key right in here, if you can see it. Right there. So what that does is it acts as a lock. So the axle nut, which is right here, cannot turn once you get it adjusted properly. So I'm gonna take a magnet, pull that out, and then we're going to take our axle nut socket, stick it in there, and then take the axle nut out. So there's our little keyway. So you should be able to just turn it by hand, because that axle nut is not supposed to be tight. It's supposed to be snug, but not tight. Alright, so there's our axle nut. So at this point, we're just gonna take the assembly here and just rock it back and forth until it slides off and brings the outer bearing with it. Next, just take your pry bar or a big flathead screwdriver and just work behind the seal all the way around until it comes free. Just like that. Trash. So we're going to take a little bit of brake cleaner, clean off this spindle here. Clean the outside, but don't spray brake cleaner or carb cleaner into the axle tube, because you don't want to contaminate your oil. So first things first, on the hub, we're going to get the rest of our old seal out of there. So there's the rest of our seal. And then there's our inner bearing. I'm going to flip it over. And you're gonna take a large punch and you're gonna go all the way down to that inner race. Just set that punch right on the edge of the race, being careful not to damage the wall of the assembly. And then you're gonna knock it out. Just work your way all the way around, kind of evenly knock it out. And there's the inner race. All right, so to get the outer bearing and race out, there's a big retaining clip down inside here, and I've heard that it's a major pain in the butt to get out. So we're gonna see if we can get it out with the snap ring pliers. I don't know if they're gonna be big enough. It's a pretty big retaining clip. There it is. That's a big one. I don't know if you can tell, but it's pretty thick too. And they don't have just a pinhole for your snap ring pliers to get into. It's more of a notch, if you can see that. So I just use the pair of needle nose pliers to get in there. That's how big these things are. And you have to pry it all the way in just to get it out of the sleeve there. Take another big punch and a hammer. Same thing as the other one, just work it all the way around. There it went. So there's our outer bearing and race. So now we're gonna wipe out our hub. Make sure there's no crap in there. Next, we're gonna take our bearing and we're gonna set it just like this, the smaller cone end up. Of course, we're looking at the back side of the hub. So we're gonna set that in just like that. And then our race is gonna go in right behind it. So the hardest part about getting this race pressed in without a press is finding something large enough to fit over the top of the race, but that'll fit down in the hub assembly. So I just happen to have this giant old socket that fits perfectly right over the race. So I'm gonna use that to evenly press it down in place. So there we have it, pressed in to the very bottom. You wanna make sure it's all the way seated at the bottom. Make sure your bearings rotate freely. And then we're gonna put our humongous snap ring back in. Got it. So basically same step with the inner bearing. We'll take some brake cleaner, wipe it off where the race is going to be pressed in. And also where the seal is going to sit on the outside and inner lip right there. Because you don't want any gear oil on that either. I'm gonna set our race in like that. We're gonna take our old race, wipe it off first, and use it to kind of start pressing in our old race, or new race, excuse me. Make sure it's seated all the way around, just like that. Take our new bearing, put a little bit of lube on it. So now we're gonna wipe this inside lip one more time for our seal. Make sure it's all good and clean at the top and the sides. We're gonna take our good seal, set it on top. This is also supposed to be pressed in dry. So you're gonna wanna take something flat. So I have this piece of aluminum, and I'm just gonna use it to tap the seal in nice and gentle. Just work all the way around, make sure it's seated completely. And there it is. New bearings, new races, new seal. Ready to go back on. I'm gonna take our hub. So now I'm gonna spin it and kind of tap it in to kind of seat that seal. So now we got our axle nut cleaned up. We're gonna go ahead and get that started. And then we're gonna take our torque wrench, set it to 50 foot-pounds. And we're gonna snug this down. So we're gonna tighten it a little bit, get some of the slack taken out of it. We're gonna spin it, tighten it a little more, spin it. Right there, 50 foot-pounds. So now that it's set at 50 foot-pounds, we're gonna back it off a quarter of a turn. So there's a quarter turn. And we're gonna take our socket, put it back on there, and we're gonna tighten it by hand. So you want to spin it, you want to make sure it spins freely. Snug it down by hand again. Align this keyhole with the nearest key slot on the axle nut. We're going to put our keyway back in and our retaining clip, and then we'll be ready to slide the axle back in. So I'm going to take some more brake cleaner on a shop towel. I put it on the shop towel because I don't want to spray it into the hub assembly. I'm going to wipe this outside off really good. And we're going to do the same thing on the inside of the axle flange. So now that that's clean, we're going to take some ultra black Permatex. We're going to put it around the flange here on the outside of the bolts. We're going to take our axle, slide it back in. And we're going to put just a little bit of thread locker blue on the bolts just to make sure they don't back off. If you're anything like me and you get messy, greasy hands and you accidentally get it on the rotor, you definitely want to take some brake cleaner and a rag and get it all cleaned off before you put your caliper and brake pads back on, because Once your brake pads get contaminated, there's no going back, there's no fixing it. No matter what you do, you gotta replace them. So I'm gonna clean this off real good. All right, so we're gonna stick our caliper back on. Now we're ready for those big, beautiful TIS wheels to go back on. Man, I need some new lugs. Lug nuts are horrible. I really want to do spiked lug nuts on this. So I think it looked pretty cool. But leave in the comments, tell me what you guys think. That's all there is to it, guys. If you have any questions, comments, suggestions, advice, I'm open to anything. I'm not a professional mechanic, so if you have a better solution to anything that I've done in this video, feel free, throw it below. Thank you, TIS, for making these wheels. I love them. I've beat the crap out of them. They still look amazing. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't, because I have some pretty cool stuff coming. You guys are awesome. I'll catch you on the next one.